Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is Typewriters Podcast. I am your host, Adrian Santiago. I am an author and a YouTube content creator. If you don't know me, if this is your first time, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for coming. Typewriters Podcast is a bit of an after show for Livestream Sunday. This week we wrapped up season 4 with the grand finale with Mr. Tim Hickson from Hello Future Me. And he'll be joining us in here in just a moment to sort of wrap up our thoughts on everything. Go ahead and hit in the link in the description below. There's a link to the survey, 2 questions, and you have a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So it basically helps me out with the next project I have coming out after the release of my novel. So we're looking at probably January-ish release for that one. And we're filming all the videos 2 months from now in July. So in the meantime, we would like to know how we can make it the best product possible for you guys. All right, guys, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest, Mr. Tim Hickson. Welcome back.
Hello again.
Hello again. Thank you so much for coming on Livestream Sunday, man. That was a lot of fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was good for you too.
Yeah. No. It was good fun. Good fun. Always. Good fun to talk about stuff.
Yeah, and the chat was hopping compared to what's normal for my streams. Everybody had a lot of questions for you. I'm glad that we got to zip through them really quick at the end there. I think we pretty much got to all of them. Now we've talked a lot about your sort of career path with YouTube and everything, and your writing, ultimately coming into now writing a novel. You're working on a sci-fi novel. How is this project different from what you've done before? This is your first fiction novel, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Or your second?
First in what sense? First as in one I've written, first as in one
published.
I'm trying to get published, or
right,
first
published.
that will probably get published. It'll be my... I've got another book which is out with agents at the moment, but I haven't had any luck with it. Which is sort of an NA with a dash of sci-fi. It's so this one will likely be the first one that gets published. Yes.
Now, that other project, any thought into self-publishing instead of going through the traditional guys?
I want to be traditionally published. Call it an ego thing.
It's kind of a badge of honor kind of thing for a lot of writers. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, I'm planning on self-publishing. That's the plan, because, you know, what else am I going to do?
It's difficult.
But if somebody wants to, absolutely, let's do it. Like, let's, as long as it's a fair deal, let's absolutely do it. That would be as well a badge of honor for me, I think,
Very much so.
And I'm sure you can relate, having been a reader since a little kid, and now I'm 37 writing my first novel. Like, I have a lifetime of reading where I'm like, I've always wanted to do this. I'm finally doing it, So yeah, the idea of finally getting it out there, getting it published. See, now the reason I asked the self-publishing thing, like, I know you want to be traditionally published, but if this next one does, what's the harm in self-publishing the former?
There wouldn't be anything wrong with that. I do intend in the long run to self-publish novels. Nice. I did self-publish these.
There you go.
Because I wanted to understand how self-publishing worked, but I want to understand how traditional publishing works as well.
What did you learn about self-publishing that really, surprised you, was a big learning curve for you?
That I hate Ingram Spark with a fiery passion. It is hands down the worst company I have ever worked with, and is unequivocally something I think should be burned down and replaced with something that is even slightly functional in comparison. And I hope that anyone who has ever tried to sell someone Ingram Spark is hunted down by a Norse dear god.
Did you use them both times, or just the first book?
Only the second one. Only the second one.
Oh, what did you do the first time?
I just put it up on Amazon. I didn't expect anyone to like buy it, and
Okay.
then people did. And so, yeah.
But the second one you went through Ingram Spark. Was it?
No,
because
I
you-
went through both on the second one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just to sort of reach a wider net, so to speak. Cast a wider net.
Well, people were sort of saying like, oh, they don't want to support Amazon and stuff like that, and they want to have other options, and plus they want to get it in bookstores. But the thing is, Ingram Spark doesn't get it in bookstores. It just makes it possible to get in bookstores, and unless you're selling thousands and thousands of copies, bookstores aren't going to care.
Huh.
Yeah, so Ingram Spark is basically useless unless you want to. There's a couple of other benefits, but I ended up actually doing the ebook not through them, but through something Libre, which was the smoothest process ever. I love them so much, but yeah.
So, Ingram Spark makes it possible to go into bookstores. They don't actually do it for you. So then you would have to order from each individual bookstore your book. Otherwise, they're not going to do it themselves, right?
No. Ingram Spark, bookstores can order it from Ingram Spark. You can also order it from Ingram Spark.
Gotcha.
But the thing is that because of how their policies work with Ingram Spark, basically, if you don't live in the United States or is it Australia, you are going to possibly end up losing money on it being sold in bookstores because of how their returns policy works.
Now, have you looked into any hybrid publishers at all? Because I was kind of researching that for a while myself. The guys that will sort of like break up the publishing process into chunks, and anything you can do on your own, you do on your own, and anything you need help with, you can pay them to do for you. And ultimately, you publish a book together.
The only one I know of is Wraithguard, I think.
I had a lady on here from Greenleaf Book Group. That's another one.
Right. It's not something that particularly appeals to me. It just seems like a more expensive way of doing self-publishing.
It does. Once she started breaking, because I had her on here a few seasons ago. Once she started breaking down all the different, chunks, all the different prices, yeah, it adds up, man. It's pretty expensive. I mean, it's going to cost you just as much to do it on your own or less. So, like,
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I was just kind of like, it's not that hard to self-publish, and it is very difficult to trade publish. And so, what are you actually getting of the trade publishing element out of it? I mean, they're not helping promote it, are they?
Yeah. This way it looks like we're looking at each other. Yeah, man. So, see, I'm in the editing process of my novel now. Like, I finished the first draft. I sent that off to the editor, and I'm starting to work on the sequel. I want to get this book out by December, and I'm self-publishing again unless some magic happens. But I'm not gonna be. I don't think I'm gonna be shopping it around or whatever. I think that I'm probably going to kind of earn my stripes in self-publishing, maybe for this first series,
which is a totally valid way of doing it. Absolutely,
exactly, and then try to reach a little higher to the traditional publishers once I've sort of got a little bit of a track record behind me of some kind.
That's one way to do it. I partly wanted to self-publish those two books there because I wanted to be like, hey, I've already done the self-published route and sort of succeeded. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so was there anything that you wanted to cover on the shows that maybe we didn't get to during Livestream Sunday?
No, nothing comes to mind, I'm afraid. But if you've got any other questions or anything like that, I'm happy to talk through them.
My good friend, you have been extremely generous with your time. I have a couple of questions that I keep on the back burner here, so I'll rattle them off real quick here, and then I think that we can call it a night for you.
Okay.
I have 4 here. Number 1, and this is because my audience always asks these. These are the questions that everybody always asks. Number 1, do you struggle with writer's block, and if so, how do you fight it?
Writer's block, to me, I don't tend to struggle with writer's block that much. I tend to find that when people say they struggle from writer's block, what they actually mean is that they've taken a wrong turn in their writing. So they've got to a point where they're going, I don't know where to go next, or I'm not feeling confident in the scene that I'm currently writing.
Right.
And usually the problem is in the scene beforehand.
Mhm.
It's in the setup to the scene that you're currently in. And so what that usually means is you haven't done the setup for the thing that you're writing. I tend to find. And so my solution when I feel that is I look at the piece and I go, why am I not feeling confident in this? Why am I not feeling like I'm able to write this? You know, writer's block isn't just you magically can't write. You know, it's usually in my experience that the story is not working on some underlying level, and it's up to you to figure out what that is.
I agree with you. You know, a lot of times people will express that they've run into writer's block and they haven't written anything. They're supposedly working on a book, but they've hit writer's block. And I always tell them something very similar. I'm like, it just means you need to go back to your outline. Something's wrong. You're missing something. You missed something. You made a wrong turn somewhere. Like you said, like you just have to find what it is that you have to fix in there, and the dam will break and you'll be able to continue forward. I put a lot of work into my outlining so that I get it to the point where every day when I'm writing my novel, every day that I sit down, I know exactly what I'm going to write today because it's in my outline. I finished that chapter yesterday and today it's this one, and on we go. Do you ever struggle with imposter syndrome?
Imposter
syndrome.
It's funny. I saw someone else make that exact mistake recently.
I didn't even realize I said it. Imposter syndrome.
Also, I don't want to like condescend to anyone about the writer's block thing.
Oh no, I agree with. I just agree with you that it's often a misunderstanding of a problem.
Yeah, I just sort of sounded like I was going like, oh, you're struggling to write. It's because you've screwed up before. Like,
well, I just tell them that it doesn't exist. Writer's block doesn't exist. It just means that there's something that you need to do before you can continue onward. And maybe that's stepping away from it and doing something different, writing something different.
Yeah,
that could also be it.
I do. Yeah, but what was the question again? It was.
I mean, we were just talking about it. Imposter syndrome and writer's block. Those two things.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, it's a bit of a force. It's definitely something I struggle with. The big thing for me was I got to the point where I'm like people view me as like a writing authority, but I feel really insecure in my own writing. Like I feel like I was sitting there, I was kind of like, I'm a good writer, right? I am a good writer. Like I think I'm a good writer. And then of course, they're like, well, you're giving writing advice, but what have you actually published? And I'm like, well, I've done a couple of things on the side and stuff like that. And so I sort of got into a bit of a panic about that. I'm like, am I actually a good writer, or is this just all a delusion? And so I basically started going, okay, I need to get stories published. And so I started writing short stories and sending them out, and I got published over the last year. And I was really stoked with that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually a good writer. Like, this is actually validation. I'm getting published and getting feedback from like really good magazines, and so that's sort of how I dealt with that. I was kind of going like, I don't know if I'm actually any good, but now.
It almost sounds like, well, I haven't validated myself, but look, others are validating me. I must be okay. Everything should be all right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. Yeah.
For me, imposter syndrome usually would manifest in the sense of, insecurity in my writing, like you said. But what would happen I would notice rhythms or themes or whatever that were in things that I loved. And I was like, oh, I'm ripping everybody off. I'm doing stuff that everybody else already did. But I mean, when you first start out as a writer, that's part of it. You draw from what you know, you draw from what you love to read, to form what you love to write, and you figure out your own style as you go. So in those early days, I feel like a lot of people run into imposter syndrome thinking that it's a horrible thing, that they're emulating their heroes. But that's what you're supposed to do. Every author tells you to steal from everybody that you love. Steal from them.
When people say, how should I start out? Like, one of the things I sort of tell people is I say, like, look at the stories you want to write that like have been written by other people. Like, what books did you read that you were like, I wish I did this kind of thing. Yeah. And just write a story that's kind of like that, and then figure out another time when you write a new book, do something different. Figure out how their style works and see what you can learn from it. I don't think there's anything wrong with emulating styles to figure out your own style and figure out what you want to write and learning.
Absolutely. And to this day, I see it true with my writing and my novel. Part of the way that I structured it, I have multiple point of view characters. So I did what George Martin does in his A Song of Ice and Fire books. Every chapter is a different character. You have the character's name at the top. There's no confusion about who you're reading. Every time you start, and every chapter is essentially a short story. Every chapter has a beginning, middle, and end, and you'll just catch up with the character later on, etc. Little cliffhangers, etc. And I emulate him in that way, and I know that I'm doing it. I'm conscious that I'm doing it. I'm just trying to do it to the best of my ability. But that doesn't mean that my story is a George R.R. Martin story. You know what I mean? You have to be able to compartmentalize your influence and
definitely
all that stuff.
Yeah.
The next question I have on here: do you have plans to adapt your books or stories, your short stories, for example, into other mediums, movies, TV, video games, dreams?
I don't even know how. No, like I can tell you now that the book that I'm working on at the moment would not really work in any other medium.
I read that excerpt that you shared on Instagram today or yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued immediately. I was like, damn, I got to read this thing.
I can read you the expanded extract of that if you want.
Please do. Regale us.
All right. I once knew rain. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
I once knew rain that fell upward. They formed in currents and streams like the rivers of earth converging in basins that pass into the ocean, but their ocean was the sky. A part of me loved them, till one day they didn't. Or not one day, but 1,000, because I did not want to hurt them. It wasn't their fault. They were not cruel, not a liar. The day First told them, First could always deal with these harsh words better. Their rain fell from the sky, the way rain should. They gathered in a circular pool of 10,000 irregular stones. Even when others are gone, we carry remnants of them with us, don't we? Now, of course, none of this makes sense without the context. Yeah,
it's the imagery though is incredible, especially at the start with the rain going upward and the sky being the ocean. Like I can see that, even though it's something I've never seen before. I can see it.
So generally, like in this sci-fi book, there's a species of alien who basically take on any form that they want. The older and smarter they are, the more complicated the forms they take on, and they generally take on forms that they like to take on forms as expressions that are contrary to the laws of nature. That and they don't tend to take on like human forms or anything like that. Like when they start out, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them as like a raindrop and a person, and then they grow and they become, they'll turn themselves into a huge cliff face chiseled with whatever they want, or a storm that moves around the planet.
Whoa.
And so there's various descriptions of these creatures, and this one in particular takes the form of rain that falls upwards from the ground. And in this particular scene, one of these species is saying that they no longer love them. They don't love them at the way that they used to, and of course, because maintaining these forms takes a lot of kind of effort. It's expression of pride and their mental stability. Maintaining these forms, they lose it and they become normal rain. They become rain as it should be, and they fall to the earth, and because they no longer have the stamina to do that. So.
Here's what I find really impressive about all of that in the writing, is that without having any outside context from what you read me and what you just described, I can see so much world building already. I can see so much character work already. I mean, just the concept of these creatures alone is a massive piece of world building in and of itself.
They get more complicated.
That's bananas, man. Because if they can become a cliff face, they can become a storm. These things are throughout the world, and therefore Wow, like when does this come out?
I
need to
don't
read
know.
this. I need to read this.
The chapter names for the perspective of this alien are named after the form that they take at any given time. So there's the first one's a winged bifurcated flower, a satellite with 6 arms, then a computer chip covered in burls, half moon, half tape recorder, an astronaut with wings, and then
it's awesome.
yeah, Penrose triangles and Elfire, which I thought were cool. Yeah, they're strange creatures because they're not a hive mind, but they have multiple individuals inside their head, like fully formed individuals, who are kind of like aspects of us. Like, so we are all one person that has that has our kind of like survival instincts. And we have our desire and drive to achieve things and desire things, like
similar to Pixar's Inside Out, right?
Yes,
these aspects of your personality that are sort of driving the car of your body.
you can look at it like Inside Out. And so basically all of these creatures have levels of consciousness that they slowly get. You get your survival instincts first, and then you get your desires, and you get morality and stuff like that. And these are fully formed individuals, but they exist as individuals inside a head, kind of like Inside Out.
Gotcha.
And this one has 3. So it refers to them as first, second, and third, but the oldest and most and biggest and wisest ones might have 60, and so they don't even have a concept of what that sort of consciousness is like. So that's sort of, so there are weird.
This is some heady stuff, man. Like, you're getting into like some like real layered storytelling here. I'm very curious to find out what the plot is. I'm very, very curious.
The plot is it's primarily centered around a woman who has lost her child.
Right.
It starts.
That's right, you mentioned that.
It starts about 3 months ago. It starts with about 3 months prior to the beginning. Her child drowned, basically, and she was a young mum. She's only her daughter was like 10 years old. She's only like 20. She's only like 29, and she is absolutely trapped in her grief. And likewise, another one of that alien that we just talked about, their whole planet is dead. And then another story, which is kind of from the perspective of another character, everyone that they know has kind of gone for some reason. They find themselves entirely alone. And the catalyst is really that this woman learns about a craft heading to Earth and trying to figure out what it is, why it's coming, what's inside it, and something is heading for Earth, and it's a journey of overcoming grief, but it's really about how these 3 stories all connect with each other.
Right on, man. Right on. Okay, so then in that case, that probably brings me here to my final question, which is, what is your editing process like for these stories? And how did you find your editors?
For the short stories?
For the short stories, or the novels the one that you've been trying to shop around, the one that's coming up next?
The short stories are done by professional editors at the magazines. I edited them myself, sent them in, then they edit them, and publish them. The editors for my book, when I've been shopping them around, I do beta readers who give feedback, and I do a proofreader, but I don't take on professional editors in this stage of the production. If you want to do trad publishing, you'll get an editor later on, and I'm much more interested in selling the concept as it is, and then hearing that professional feedback from someone inside a publishing house.
Nice.
So I do beta readers who give feedback, and I change based on that experience, their experiences with the book. But I don't have a professional editor who goes through and line edits, structural edits, and stuff like that.
The developmental edit, all that kind of stuff.
The
revisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister is my editor on this book. She's essentially a critique partner that I'm paying to get it done because she's like me, and if she doesn't have like a carrot at the end, it's not gonna get done. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you a carrot, just get it done. But she's she's a creative writing major, and she's written a couple of screenplays, and she has some poetry that's been published, won a couple of poetry contests and stuff like that. So she's my critique partner, and from her I'm getting my second draft, and then that's going to beta readers and critique partners from there, and,
Well, that's
and
good.
I'll get
I mean,
a nice third draft out of that.
Everyone's got a different policy.
Exactly, yeah, like, and that's what I'm finding in talking to so many authors on this channel is everybody does it a little differently. Everybody has some wiggle room in their process as well. I noticed like people are always like either trying something new or changing something that didn't work before. It's a fluid thing where you're going through your writing journey, until you find your process and everything. But everybody has it their own. Everybody has
very much so. Yeah. Very much so.
Mr. Hickson, thank you so very much for all of your time today. Livestream Sunday Typewriters Podcast. You have been such a treat, and I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors, and I can't wait to see the next 2 videos that I know are coming. I can't wait to read your novel. I'm here for it, man.
I'm very excited to share them all with you. Thank you very much for having me.
And hail Mishka.
Mishka is dead, but
I know, but still,
yeah.
Still, hail Mishka.
Yeah, hail Mishka, hail Mishka.
Rest in peace.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Oh, one last thing. I said it before, but I haven't said it on camera. Congratulations on your engagement, and I wish you all the best on your wedding and a happy marriage.
Thank you very much.
Everybody at home, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. You all know the deal. And we will see you on Sunday with Write the Damn Story with Martin Lejeune. And then Tuber Book Club the Tuesday after that. We'll see you there. We're talking about Nightmare Tenant, written by Richard Holiday. Right on, writers. We